Hello, and welcome to the Overflow Podcast. My name is Craig Booker. The title of this episode is Fanatical Consistency. A lot of the material for this week's episode was inspired by Craig Groeschel's book, The Power to Change Mastering the Habits That Matter Most. Note, I will talk a lot about mental health, but please note this is not a substitute for therapy or mental health care. I am not a counselor or physician. If you need help with mental health challenges, please find a qualified mental health professional. In this episode, we're talking about fanatical consistency. In this episode, we are looking at how do successful people become successful people. We've talked a lot about our habits, we've talked about goals, we've talked about the person that we're, or the who that we're trying to become. So now we're starting to put a lot of this together. A lot of the lessons that we learned in earlier episodes are starting to build into these later sections. Again, we're asking the question, how do successful people become successful people? Craig Groeschel goes into kind of an introduction here in this section of the book, talking about how, growing up, how he used to view successful people and how he thought they got there was a lot maybe by luck or coming across the right people or opportunities. And what he describes is that as he got to know successful people, he learned that this was just not true. It was not luck. It was that when they were asked what they did, like maybe one thing that they did that contributed to their success, they could not answer the question. And what they learned is that it came down to being consistent, and it wasn't luck at all. So it was consistency, not luck. Quote here from Craig Groeschel says, successful people are not lucky, they're consistent. He says, but if you get to know successful people, you realize their success was not serendipitous. It was also not the result of a single moment, like one big, bold action or decision. Just like we said, failure is not a landslide, but an erosion. It works both ways. People succeed, they achieve their win because of countless, seemingly small actions and decisions they made consistently over time. The idea here is what they call fanatical consistency. What the research concluded when they did some research on this was they found that fanatical consistency leads to the success of the best. Successful people do consistently what others do occasionally. What do successful people do consistently? Well, surprise, habits. What we've been talking about, the right strategic habits. Once again, he says, not luck, but consistency. As we revisit the story of Daniel in the Bible, and Daniel prayed 3 times a day. God granted him favor in many different ways. And, it makes you want to know, why did God grant him this favor? And it says that Daniel consistently sought God 3 times per day. He was faithful in the little things. Then in the book, he talks about this author, Malcolm Gladwell, who is famous for this idea of 10,000 hours. For his 2008 book, Outliers, The Story of Success, Malcolm Gladwell studied successful people. And what common thread did he find to explain their success? Answer was 10,000 hours. He discovered that across the board, people who became great at something put in 10,000 hours of practice. Craig Groeschel says people who are successful in their careers or marriages got there a little at a time. It wasn't overnight. A lot of times we see successful people and it seems like they got their success overnight, but what we don't see is all of the little bitty actions they took over a long period of time to get there. As we look at an exercise for this week, it says to complete the following sentences. It says, one thing I have done occasionally that I want to become fanatically consistent at doing is blank. Okay, so that's the first question. And then 2, it says, I can begin or increase my efforts to put in my 10,000 hours by blank. So these are 2 questions for us to reflect on to figure out how we are going to be more consistent in the habits that we've chosen to start. Maybe we've chosen to stop some habit as well. We might look at this exercise this week as we are reflecting on our goals, on our habits, and ask ourselves these questions. Like, what are we going to do to be more consistent in the things that we want to accomplish? Maybe we're doing our habit a few times a week, and we would like to increase that to 3. Figure out what that is for you and what practical steps you can take. In that second question, it says I can begin or increase my efforts. Again, that could be going from 2 times a week to 3. That just depends on what your habits that you've chosen are. So we have a principle for this section. It says successful people do consistently what others do occasionally. Wealth from get-rich-quick schemes quickly disappears. Wealth from hard work grows over time. Proverbs 13:11, New Living Translation. That's all for this episode. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes.